You know, when you get into this hobby of reading manga or collecting manga, there are a handful of series that kind of sit in this untouchable category. And one of those series, at the top of it every time, is Berserk. It's a manga, especially with the deluxe editions. It seems like everyone that you watch on YouTube has it in their collection. Even me, I have it in my collection. And if I'm being honest with you, I hardly ever touched it. But then, the final chapters of Miura's work got released in deluxe editions. Volume 14 came out. It got me thinking of like, hey, you know, I've collected 14 of these. I should probably read it. But after you've heard so many people talk amazing things about this series, from the artwork to the characters to the story to the world around them, is it possible for it to live up to expectations? And I read, and I read, and I read, and I read, and I read. I'm gonna be honest with you, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. And so I started thinking, like, should I make a video about this? There's so many videos out there that are gonna do what I am talking about way better than me. Is it kind of worth it? But listen, this has been the last month of my life of reading this series, and I just have to talk about it. Now, even though I've gotten 34 volumes into this series, I kind of wanted to focus on the beginning, the Golden Age arc, which I believe that if you have heard about Berserk, it's probably the Golden Age. I would say that this is the most popular arc in this series. Is it the best? I don't know. That's not this video, you know? That might be a future video, but it's not this video. And so I kind of want to dive into the Golden Age of Berserk and kind of talk about what my experience was like reading this series when the hype and the mythos of Berserk was already ingrained into me, and to see if it held up. So we start off getting introduced to Guts and Puck. What I really enjoyed about this is it kind of dropped you into the middle of this thing that's going on. You're trying to figure out, like, okay, who are these characters? What's going on? What is this world? Oh my God. Some things are transpiring in a big bad way. Wow. Does it just drop you in? But I think that's smart, man. I think that when you think of the beginning parts of any series, it's always sometimes considered the slowest. Like, you have to set up this world, set up these characters, and kind of build to what is the story going to be in the first few chapters. And Berserk kind of just throws you in there and says, good luck, figure it out. But it does what it needs to do with introducing you to Guts and Griffith, who is part of the God Hand. Again, it just gives you all this information and says, don't wait, whoa. We'll explain it, we'll figure it out, but just give us some time. And I think that's so smart to hook you that way. And while the first small little arc is kind of about how absolute power corrupts absolutely, don't worry, that is an ongoing theme in this series. But that first arc does an amazing job of kind of setting this tone. And then they do the amazing thing of, let's go back to the beginning. And that to me is where this story really kicks off, which is the Golden Age arc. This arc has been put into the greatest arc in manga history, right? Those lists of like manga arcs that kind of changed everything. So to say I was hesitant when I started the Golden Age of like, all right, hey, hold on. Let me see if I agree with this. So when we go back in time and kind of see how Guts came to be and all of the trials and tribulations he went through to become this cold-hearted person that we are introduced to in that first small arc, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know how Miura was going to flesh out this character. That could easily come off as one note, could easily come off as, I don't care what anybody says, I'm gonna do it. You know, kind of that cheesy 80s action star, right? You know what I mean? Like, it could easily come off as that. Is he going to really have this complexity? Let me tell you, he does. I will spoil that. What he is able to weave into Guts' character that could easily come off as one note is no short of incredible. So as we're going through Guts' beginning journey of being discovered under, you know, bodies, already off to a, boy, what a start. I should go ahead and say this. This manga does not shy away from being violent and showing the brutality of the people that inhabit this world. I'm going to skip over a few things because legitimately couldn't tell them to you on YouTube. they would immediately destroy this video. But we see this young kid who's honestly not wanted, who's taken advantage of because he is kind of this mad dog, this ravenous young child on a battlefield. And already, right, it's only been a handful of chapters, and he's kind of laying the seeds that, in my opinion, what I got out of it, I think this is what makes a great complex character, is up to your own interpretation. I kind of interpreted that Guts could have easily been a well-adjusted individual, but the nature and the world around him made him become what he goes on to be. That's a powerful message for Miura to take with this character. I think that's what I respect about it, right? I respect a lot about this work, but to start with this, I respect that he swings big for this stuff, especially in the beginning. He's not afraid to miss, which makes it, when he connects with what he's trying to do, I think that's part of why it resonates with so many people, and so many people kind of put this work on the top of their list. And not even just with the characters. Miura swings big on his artwork. Berserk is almost unfair. I have read 34 volumes of Berserk so far. He swings huge in this artwork. It is almost unfair to put it up against other things, because while not every panel is the Mona Lisa, I have read a ton of manga since I've started collecting and started doing videos on YouTube. No manga so far has gotten me to stop so many times and just look at that, double spread page, or just a panel, or just the background. He had an incredible gift. There's no way you can deny that. There are reasons that there are art galleries and, little special museums dedicated to Berserk, because it's just that good. Now, I get it. Some of the things that he ends up depicting in this series is kind of intense. But that's the story he wanted to tell. I believe that he wanted to paint this world and everyone that kind of lives in it and tries to survive in it. And do that, it has to be dark. It has to be a seinen title. And while I do have some opinions on the later arcs that I have read so far, in the Golden Age, it is 100% a seinen title. And it's right in my wheelhouse of kind of blending this alternate history with what I think is a fantastic character study of a singular character. So after some traumatic experiences, he gets brought into this band of mercenaries by Griffith, who again, we've already met and we know he's part of this God Hand. But now we get to see kind of this relationship develop. And not only are we introduced to Griffith, we're also introduced to Casca, who becomes an integral part in Guts as a character, and all of the Band of Hogs, that plays such a big role in the story to come. Just thinking about the end of the Golden Age, let me tell you, boy, it was one of the most jaw-dropping endings to an arc I have ever witnessed. It destroys you. It destroys you. But I think that ending destroys you because you end up learning about all of these characters. And while I'm going to try my best to avoid talking about spoilers, I do think that this arc hinges on, we have seen this character, where he's going, where he's coming from, and now we get to see why he got there. And that's the thing I really have to give it up to in the beginning of Berserk. It moves, and it does that heavy lifting of introducing you to the world, but it doesn't feel like an info dump. It feels like you're slowly unraveling these things in front of you. And that pacing is so well done. Because even though he starts off very standoffish, the only reason he joins these band of mercenaries is because Griffith beats him in a one-on-one duel. And again, we kind of see how Griffith is. Everyone's kind of drawn to him. He has this aura around him, because he is fighting for his dream of his own kingdom, which is easily interpreted as power. That's what he wants. And he already has power over this entire group of mercenaries. They follow his words really without question. And they feel like they can't do anything if he's not around. And I think it's so smart that when Guts comes in, while he's enthralled with Griffith, Griffith is just as enthralled with him. And that's when you start to see that yin and yang, that two sides of the same coin. Because he is one of the only characters that, instead of wanting to stand behind Griffith, he wants to stand beside him. And watching that relationship unfold, where Guts kind of does what he's told to do, kind of wanting to go off on his own, to be able to be on the same level as Griffith, is a very interesting ride. Because what I think the Golden Age does so well is to watch this character go from feeling alone in the world to having a family, to being alone again. And I haven't really seen that in a manga in just one arc. Usually that's kind of the series overall. And I think it's fun for you as the reader to kind of go through and learn about these characters and get attached to some characters, and to watch this story unfold. You kind of feel like Guts yourself. Not in a weird, like, mental, like, way, you know? Not like you see yourself as Guts, you know, obviously fictional character. But it gives you that feeling, and you really feel what he's going through. Again, that's just great writing. And that's what kind of got me nervous, too, with this last volume 14 that came out. It's the final chapters of Miura, and kind of how does Berserk continue without its captain there to kind of steer the ship? And I know, like, the stuff behind the scenes, and I'm sure it's in great hands, and I'm sure that he's doing all right, but it kind of just got me thinking that this story, while having very magical and not real-world things going on, it feels very personal. And usually, a personal story like that is carried by the author. So what happens when a series that feels so about and from this one individual has to go on without them? I don't know. I think it will be a very interesting thing, and it got me very excited to kind of see how it plays out, which is the reason that I kind of wanted to read Berserk. I know what you're thinking. You're probably writing in the comments, I wish this guy would just, like, talk about the stuff, and it's been long enough. The thing about it is, I just kind of wanted to make this video to like ramble, and if you've had Berserk sitting in your collection, looking at those deluxe editions, if you do watch my stuff, to kind of, hopefully this video pushes you and, like, all right, let's check out this Berserk. The deluxe editions are finally done being released. I mean, they might go on to release Deluxe Edition Volume 15, but we won't see that for a good long time. So I just really wanted to talk about this and kind of be like, hey man, they're sitting there. You're looking at them right now. You're like, hey, oh, I should read. You should. I definitely think that Golden Age, and while I have some other opinions about the Conviction arc and those other arcs, just talking about the Golden Age. The Golden Age, you know what I mean? I definitely think you owe it to yourself to read it. Because I think what's interesting for me and my perspective of it is I've already read some mangas that have taken very direct inspiration from this legendary work. One of my favorite mangas of all time currently, Vinland Saga, you see it. Specifically from the Golden Age. There was not less than 5 times that I stopped and said, oh, is Thorfinn, is that you? Hey, Thorfinn, are you there? But you understand why people steal from it or pay homage to it. Because even today, so far removed from its release date, this story still hit me like a ton of bricks, and it still grabbed me and wouldn't let me go until I am completely caught up. And I think that's one of the best compliments you can give any type of fiction or any type of entertainment, is no matter what time, what era, what other stuff you've read before it, it doesn't lose its gut punches. It doesn't lose its momentum. It doesn't lose what made it so special and so untouchable for all these years. Because especially if you've read a ton of manga or watched a ton of anime, you know how hard it is to write good characters. But every single Band of Hawks member is true to the type of people they are, down to a fault. And while it's understandable that maybe this type of violence and darkness and just dreary, drab stuff is not for you, and that's understandable, and if that's not your type of thing, you're not going to find anything here. But I was just completely in awe and shock that when I finished that arc, everything clicked together, and I said, well, I definitely see why this might be considered one of the greatest manga of all time. I hope that if you've made it to the end of this video, like, it gives you that push to read it, because I think, while yes, there's like this, is it going to hold up? I have really been enjoying my time with this series. I think Berserk and Guts as a character, as you just watched this whole video, you know how I feel about it. But either way, I am so thankful that you guys have watched this video. It means the world to me. And as always, I hope that if you're having a bad day, it gets better. If you're having a good day, it becomes fantastic. I'll see you next time.